Welcome back to the channel, Coin Collectors. Today, we are taking a fascinating look at 4 classic United States Washington quarter-dollar coins from different years, 1966, 1980, 1981, and 1995. Each of these quarters carries the familiar portrait of George Washington on the obverse, along with the words Liberty and In God We Trust. Although they may look similar at first glance, each year represents a different period in the history of American coinage. First coin. The 1966 Washington quarter is a fascinating piece of American coinage history. At first glance, it may look like an ordinary quarter, but this coin was produced during one of the most important transitions in the history of United States coins. The 1966 quarter belongs to the early years of the change from traditional silver coinage to copper-nickel clad coinage, making it especially interesting to collectors. The Washington quarter was first introduced in 1932 to celebrate the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth. The original quarters were made primarily from silver, and the design quickly became one of the most recognizable images in American coinage. For decades, Washington's portrait appeared on circulating quarters made from a silver alloy. By the middle of the 1960s, however, the United States faced a serious shortage of silver. The price and demand for silver had increased, while millions of Americans were saving silver coins because their metal value was becoming increasingly attractive. As a result, silver coins were disappearing from everyday circulation. The United States Mint needed a solution. In 1965, the government introduced a new copper-nickel clad composition for the dime and quarter. Instead of being made from silver, the new coins consisted of layers of copper and copper-nickel alloy. This change dramatically altered the history of American circulating coinage. The 1966 Washington quarter was therefore part of this important transition. It was made from the new copper-nickel clad composition rather than the traditional 90% silver alloy used on earlier Washington quarters. The coin has an outer layer of copper-nickel bonded to a pure copper core. This construction gave the quarter a distinctive appearance and helped reduce the country's dependence on silver for everyday coinage. The obverse of the 1966 quarter features a portrait of George Washington facing left. The design was created by sculptor John Flanagan and had been used on Washington quarters since 1932. Around Washington's portrait are the inscriptions Liberty, In God We Trust, and the date 1966. The reverse features an American eagle with outstretched wings. The eagle is surrounded by the inscriptions United States of America and quarter dollar, along with the motto E Pluribus Unum. The combination of Washington's portrait and the eagle created a patriotic design that represented the United States during a period of major economic and social change. One unusual feature of 1966 coinage is the absence of a traditional mint mark on the Washington quarter. During this period, the United States Mint temporarily suspended mint marks as part of an effort to discourage coin collecting and hoarding. The Philadelphia Mint produced coins without a mint mark, while quarters produced at other facilities also lacked their normal identifying marks during this period. The 1966 quarter was struck at both the Philadelphia and Denver mints, but without a mint mark. This makes the year particularly interesting because collectors cannot simply identify the production facility by looking for a letter such as D or S. Another important part of the story is the temporary restriction on mint marks. During the coin shortage of the 1960s, officials were concerned that collectors were removing newly produced coins from circulation. By eliminating mint marks, the mint hoped to make newly issued coins less attractive to collectors and encourage people to keep them in circulation. The 1966 quarter weighs approximately 5.67 grams and has a diameter of about 24.3 millimeters. Its clad construction was designed to provide durability while maintaining the familiar size and appearance of the traditional quarter. For collectors today, the value of a 1966 Washington quarter depends heavily on its condition, rarity, and any unusual minting characteristics. Most circulated examples are common and are generally worth close to their face value. However, coins in exceptionally high grades can attract greater interest from collectors. Coins with unusual errors, strong strikes, or remarkable preservation may also receive premiums. It is important to remember that not every old quarter is automatically rare or valuable. A coin's age is only one factor. Collectors usually examine condition, surface quality, luster, strike, errors, and overall eye appeal when determining collectability. The 1966 Washington quarter is especially valuable as a historical object because it represents the beginning of America's modern clad coin era. It came shortly after the United States stopped using silver in circulating dimes and quarters, marking the end of an important chapter in American monetary history. Today, the 1966 Washington quarter can still be found in collections, coin jars, and occasionally in circulated change. For many collectors, its greatest attraction is not simply its monetary value but the story behind it. It reminds us of a time when the United States was dealing with a national coin shortage, rising silver demand, and a major transformation in the nation's currency. Next coin. The 1981 Washington quarter is an interesting piece of modern American coinage and an excellent example of the classic quarter design that had become familiar to generations of Americans. Carrying the portrait of George Washington on the obverse and an American eagle on the reverse, the 1981 quarter was produced during an important period in the history of United States circulating coins. The Washington quarter was first introduced in 1932 to commemorate the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth. The original quarters were made of 90% silver and 10% copper. However, by the 1960s, rising silver prices and coin shortages forced the United States Mint to make a major change. Beginning in 1965, circulating Washington quarters were produced with a copper-nickel clad composition instead of silver. By 1981, this clad composition had been in use for more than a decade. The 1981 Washington quarter therefore belongs to the modern clad era of American coinage. Its outer layers consist of a copper-nickel alloy, while the center is primarily copper. This construction allowed the mint to produce durable quarters without using large quantities of silver. The obverse of the 1981 quarter features the famous portrait of George Washington facing left. The design was originally created by sculptor John Flanagan. Around Washington's portrait are the inscriptions "Liberty" and "In God We Trust," while the date 1981 appears below the portrait. The reverse displays a powerful American eagle with its wings spread. The eagle is surrounded by the inscriptions "United States of America," "E Pluribus Unum," and "Quarter Dollar." The design gives the coin a strong patriotic character and connects it to the earlier generations of Washington quarters. One of the most important details for collectors is the mint mark. The 1981 Washington quarter was struck at multiple United States Mint facilities, including Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. Philadelphia issues carry a P mint mark, while Denver quarters carry a D. Proof versions were produced at San Francisco and normally carry an S mint mark. The regular circulating 1981 quarters were made primarily for everyday commerce. Millions entered circulation and were used for purchases, making them a familiar part of American life during the early 1980s. Because they were produced in large numbers, most circulated examples are not considered rare simply because of their age. However, condition can make a major difference to collectors. A heavily circulated 1981 quarter may show scratches, wear, and loss of original luster. In contrast, an uncirculated example with sharp details, attractive surfaces, and strong original luster can be much more desirable. Collectors also pay attention to minting errors and varieties. Errors such as off-center strikes, doubled features, clipped planchets, or other unusual characteristics can make an otherwise common quarter considerably more interesting. Any suspected error should be examined carefully, because damage that happens after a coin leaves the mint can sometimes look similar to a genuine mint error. The 1981 Washington quarter also reflects the economic environment of its time. The early 1980s were marked by significant changes in the American economy, including high inflation and changing prices. Yet the quarter remained an important denomination for everyday transactions, representing 25 cents of purchasing power. Today, the 1981 Washington quarter remains popular with collectors who enjoy building complete sets of Washington quarters. Collectors may search for examples from different mints, high-grade coins, proof issues, and unusual varieties. An important point is that an ordinary circulated 1981 quarter is generally not automatically a valuable coin. Its potential value depends on factors such as mint mark, condition, strike quality, rarity, and whether it has a genuine minting error. Collectors should always inspect the coin carefully rather than assuming that every older quarter is rare. The 1981 Washington quarter is ultimately more than just a 25-cent piece. It represents a continuation of one of America's longest-running coin designs and reflects the transition that transformed U.S. coinage from traditional silver issues to modern clad coins. For anyone interested in American coins, the 1981 quarter is a great coin to study. Its familiar portrait of George Washington, patriotic eagle reverse, copper nickel clad construction, and connection to the history of American commerce all make it an interesting collectible. Next coin. The 1995 Washington quarter is a classic example of modern United States coinage and an important part of the long-running Washington quarter series. By the time this coin was produced, the quarter had already carried George Washington's portrait for more than 6 decades. The 1995 issue continued this famous design while reflecting the modern copper nickel-clad era of American coinage. The Washington quarter was first introduced in 1932 to honor the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth. The original quarters were made from 90% silver and 10% copper. For many years, silver Washington quarters circulated throughout the United States. However, rising silver prices and a shortage of circulating coins during the 1960s eventually led to a major change. Beginning in 1965, regular Washington quarters were made with a copper-nickel clad composition instead of silver. The 1995 quarter continued to use this modern composition. Its outer layers contain copper and nickel, while the inner core is primarily copper. This construction gave the coin a distinctive appearance and provided the durability needed for everyday use. The obverse of the 1995 Washington quarter features the familiar portrait of George Washington facing left. The design was created by sculptor John Flanagan and had remained a recognizable symbol of American coinage for generations. The inscriptions "Liberty" and "In God We Trust" appear around Washington's portrait, while the date 1995 is positioned below. The reverse features a majestic American eagle with its wings spread wide. Above the eagle is the motto E Pluribus Unum, while United States of America appears around the upper portion of the design. The denomination quarter dollar is shown below the eagle. Together, these elements create a strongly patriotic design that had become instantly recognizable to Americans. The 1995 quarter was produced at multiple United States mint facilities. Regular circulation strikes were made at Philadelphia and Denver, while proof versions were produced at San Francisco. Depending on the issue, collectors can identify the minting facility by looking for the mint mark. Philadelphia coins carry a P, Denver coins carry a D, and San Francisco proof coins carry an S. Millions of 1995 Washington quarters were released for circulation, making the coin relatively familiar today. Most examples found in ordinary pocket change are circulated and show signs of wear from years of use. Scratches, small marks, flattened details, and reduced luster are common on circulated coins. For collectors, condition is one of the most important factors when evaluating a 1995 quarter. A well-preserved uncirculated example can be much more attractive than a heavily circulated coin. Collectors often look for coins with strong luster, sharp details, clean surfaces, and minimal contact marks. The 1995 Washington quarter can also become more interesting when it has a genuine minting error or unusual variety. Possible errors may include doubled details, off-center strikes, clipped planchets, or other abnormalities created during the minting process. However, collectors should distinguish genuine mint errors from damage that occurred after the coin entered circulation. Another interesting aspect of the 1995 quarter is its place in American history. The mid-1990s were a period of technological growth and economic change in the United States. The country was moving toward a rapidly expanding digital age, while physical coins remained an essential part of everyday commerce. A quarter could be used for vending machines, transportation, parking, small purchases, and countless other transactions. Although the 1995 quarter is more than 30 years old today, age alone does not make it rare. Large numbers were produced, and ordinary circulated examples generally have modest collector value. The most desirable pieces are usually those with exceptional condition, special proof characteristics, recognized varieties, or genuine mint errors. The coin is also a useful reminder of how long-lasting the Washington quarter design has been. From the silver quarters of the early 20th century to the clad coins of the modern era, Washington's portrait has remained one of the most familiar images in American currency. For anyone beginning a coin collection, the 1995 Washington quarter can be an excellent coin to study. It provides an opportunity to learn about mint marks, coin condition, clad composition, circulation history, and the differences between ordinary coins and special examples. So, if you discover a 1995 Washington quarter in an old collection or coin jar, don't overlook it. Examine both sides carefully, check the mint mark, inspect the surfaces, and look for unusual characteristics. It may be a common circulating quarter, but it still represents an important chapter in the continuing story of American coinage. Next coin. The 1996 Washington quarter is a classic example of modern United States coinage and an interesting addition to the long-running Washington quarter series. By 1996, the familiar Washington design had been used for more than 6 decades, making the quarter one of the most recognizable coins in American history. The Washington quarter was first introduced in 1932 to commemorate the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth. The original Washington quarters were made from 90% silver and 10% copper. However, during the 1960s, rising silver prices and a shortage of circulating coins led the United States Mint to change the composition of the quarter. Beginning in 1965, regular Washington quarters were produced using copper nickel-clad metal rather than silver. The 1996 quarter belongs to this modern clad era. Its outer layers are made of copper-nickel alloy, while the center is primarily copper. This layered construction helped make the coin durable enough for years of everyday circulation. The obverse of the 1996 Washington quarter features the famous portrait of George Washington facing left. The design was created by sculptor John Flanagan and had become a familiar symbol of American currency. The inscriptions "Liberty" and "In God We Trust" appear around Washington's portrait, with the date 1996 below. On the reverse is the familiar American bald eagle with its wings spread wide. Above the eagle appears the motto "E Pluribus Unum." The words "United States of America" surround the upper part of the design, while "quarter dollar" appears below. This patriotic design remained largely unchanged for decades. The 1996 Washington quarter was produced at several United States Mint facilities. Regular circulation coins were struck at Philadelphia and Denver, while proof coins were produced at San Francisco. Collectors can identify the minting facility by examining the mint mark. Philadelphia quarters carry a P, Denver quarters carry a D, and San Francisco proof quarters carry an S. Millions of 1996 quarters were released into circulation. These coins were used for everyday purchases and became part of normal American commerce. Because large quantities were produced, an ordinary circulated 1996 quarter is generally not rare simply because of its age. Condition is much more important when determining collector interest. A circulated quarter can have scratches, contact marks, dirt, and worn details from years of use. An uncirculated example, however, may retain strong original luster and sharp details. High-grade coins can be considerably more desirable to collectors than heavily worn examples. Proof versions of the 1996 quarter were specially manufactured for collectors. Proof coins generally have carefully prepared surfaces, sharper details, and a distinctive appearance compared with normal circulation strikes. Collectors often include proof examples when building complete Washington quarter collections. Another area of interest is minting errors. A 1996 Washington quarter with a genuine mint error can be much more collectible than an ordinary example. Possible errors can include off-center strikes, doubled features, clipped planchets, and other abnormalities created during the minting process. However, collectors should be careful because damage occurring after a coin leaves the mint can sometimes look like a mint error. The 1996 quarter also represents an interesting period in American history. The United States was experiencing rapid technological development, growing use of personal computers, and major changes in communication. At the same time, physical coins remained an essential part of everyday life. Quarters were commonly used in vending machines, parking meters, public transportation, stores, and many other places. For coin collectors, the 1996 Washington quarter provides an excellent opportunity to study the characteristics of modern U.S. coinage. Collectors can compare the Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco issues, examine differences in condition, and search for unusual varieties or errors. It is important to remember that an old-looking coin is not automatically a valuable coin. The value of a 1996 Washington quarter depends on several factors, including its mint mark, condition, strike quality, rarity, and whether it contains a recognized error or variety. Most ordinary circulated examples remain relatively common. Even so, the 1996 quarter has an important place in the history of American money. It continues a design that began during the Great Depression and survived the transition from silver to clad coinage. Few American coins have had such a long and recognizable connection with the public. So, if you find a 1996 Washington quarter in your collection or pocket change, don't immediately spend it without looking closely. Check the mint mark, examine Washington's portrait, inspect the eagle on the reverse, and look for unusual characteristics. The 1996 Washington quarter may be a common modern coin, but it still carries a fascinating story. It represents decades of American history, the evolution of U.S. coinage, and the continuing legacy of George Washington on one of America's most familiar denominations.